Saladad, that was a part of the Board of Prison terms. And let me tell you something, they terrorize life.
And today we got none other than our brother Kevin Wharton Price.
Yeah.
Co-founder of Africatown Coalition. So, first off, how long were you a prisoner of war?
I was a prisoner of war for 22 years straight. I was convicted of kidnap robbery, and so kidnap robbery had, and if you go to trial, it has an automatic life sentence. You know what I'm saying? So I went to trial. You know, I was young and dumb. I thought that I was really smart. I was smart, but I just wasn't smart in the system. And so I was convicted of life. You know, I was convicted of kidnap robbery, life. And I, you know, was one of the few people that took that. I think I was kind of one of the last people that took the Grey Goose. You know, from Chino all the way to Folsom Prison. You know, but in 1983, I was convicted, and I was sent to Ontario, where I began my. This is a vicious trip, y'all. It's a vicious trip. You know what I'm saying? And even from the beginning, right? From the very beginning, like those first few weeks, that's like really the first week up in the reception center, you learn the politics. You learn the politics, you learn how to identify the threats. You know what I'm saying? You learn how to ward off some threats, because some of them might just come your way while you're up in that reception center. So, you know, I went to Folsom, and I jumped out. You know, I rolled up to Folsom. It looked like a Civil War prison or something, right? Like this big stone ass thing. I'm like, oh my God, I done fucked up for real, right? So I'm in Folsom now, you know, I'm fish. I had to make that adjustment and figure some shit out, right? So I had already decided that, you know, education was my path, you know what I'm saying? Because even out here on the streets, you know what I'm saying, I was half as intelligent. I was running things, you know what I'm saying, doing some really good stuff. I was pretty good in school too, right? But I just had that thing that I just needed to do, you know. I just had the thing I needed to do that led me to a life sentence. So while I was in prison, I decided that I was going to rehabilitate myself. You know, I was going to become a much better person. All right, so I was at Folsom for a little while, and I had it was an interesting experience at Folsom, because they was like killing people in Folsom, right? So, you know, I'm rolled up here, you know, and they like killing people in Folsom. I'm like, damn, you know, this is like real shit, right? So Folsom was a whole different population than some of the other populations I'm gonna talk about. But when I was at Old Folsom, you know, I got through that there, got in the boxing ring a couple of times, got my ass whooped, but you know, sometimes you just gotta do what you gotta do, right? So I got through Folsom, and I went to Saladad. Now Saladad was like way better than Folsom, right? You know what I'm saying? You could expect to maybe get killed in Folsom, but Saladad was like a lot better, you know. And so I wound up going to Saladad. I was in Saladad Central, and I was what do you call that? Damn, I forget now. Closed custody. I was on closed custody for a while, right? You know, so everybody that come down from Folsom, those higher level 4 prisons, you know what I'm saying, they're gonna put you on closed custody when you come down to a level 3. And you know, like Saladad was like a half, you know, it's like a divide, like a level 3, level 4, right? So I got down there to Saladad, and it was like, woo, breath of fresh air, right? So I headed to the library. You know, I had to do my thing, right, in the daytime. Because, you know, when you're on closed custody, you don't come out at night, and your program is very restricted, right? And there's no rehabilitation there. So if you are, most people that's on closed custody are people that have committed murder, or people that have life sentences and stuff like that, right? And there's really no room for rehabilitation. You're rehabilitating yourself in the cell, you know. So after a while, I think I was on closed custody for about a year, year and a half, maybe 2 years, and I got off closed custody, right? So now we get to go out, and we get to see the stars at night, right? And this is like a big thing, right? You know, we know there's a lot of things going on constantly within the prison system, you know. Saladad was a good place to be because, you know, I learned a lot about the revolutionary movement, you know what I'm saying? And because Saladad, I mean, that's like the seat of the revolution as far as the prison system is concerned, you know, Saladad and some old folks. And so, you know, I got through Saladad, I was in the educational thing, you know, I got involved in education, and I began to teach, you know, because my thing was just here. There's too many brothers at that time who couldn't read. And so I kind of had an obligation that I wanted to help my people out by helping some of these brothers read, because they could read, and they could probably make some better decisions, because the lifestyle that was out there on the streets is the same lifestyle that's out there in prison, unless you decide to make a change. If you don't decide to make a personal change for yourself, you're going to have that same gangster, that same rapist, that same killer, that same jackass lifestyle out in prison as you had on the streets. You You see what I'm saying? And the time is not just going to do it for you unless you do a whole lot of time. And that might change you, because time will change you. It will help you. Well, in '83, the gangs hadn't really exploded yet, so we didn't really have an issue with black gangs already. It was more like still a revolutionary atmosphere, you know what I'm saying, inside the prison system. You had a lot of Mexicans. You had, 18th Street, and you had some of the, Mexican Mafia, and you had some of the Mexican organizations that were there, you know what I'm saying, and they were in opposition to Brothers, So Brothers was basically by ourselves. We wasn't in the minority by the least. All right, we wasn't in the minority because I know I was in the county jail, right, and there was a riot, and I was like, damn, it's like a lot of motherfucking Mexicans, right? But then when they got everybody in the day room going to chow, it's like even. And Brothers was whooping ass that day. So back in my time, we wasn't like the minority. The numbers were pretty good. Mexicans ran with the white boys. White boys tried not to fuck with blacks. You know what I'm saying? And that's how we did it. Blacks basically hung themselves. You know what I'm saying? Now, you did have some people that like, some crossover, like if you was working somewhere, you know what I'm saying? You might interact with a Mexican, interact with a white boy. But when it came to social stuff, blacks were pretty much by ourselves. And we didn't need nobody else because our numbers wasn't even small. And we didn't have the gang issue that split the black prison population. Level 1, maybe a level 2, you might get to go out and clean up a park or go out and do something, you know what I'm saying? But for the most part, the labor took place through just the regular incentive program and then through PIA, Prison Industry Authority. Now, a lot of people tried to get in PIA because PIA was like, they were paying like $2.50 an hour, you know what I'm saying? Where in the regular workforce, you might get like 15 cents an hour, you know what I'm saying? So PIA was a really big thing. When PIA really took off, they were making furniture for the state and the city and different places like that. They were doing glasses, so if you get glasses through the county system, they were making glasses in prison. I actually did that job myself, so I can, that's a pretty interesting job right there. And so Prison Industry Authority is oftentimes seen as the slavery part, you know what I'm saying? Because to be honest with you, the other part, where you might make 30, if you're really at the top of the rung, you'll make 36 cents an hour, And I think the highest that we could probably make in the regular thing was like maybe 54 cents an hour, And so it's like, I'm not really like working for this here. I'm working for like to get the hell out, because the jobs were connected with the work incentive program. And so you had a choice. Either you work or you don't. If you work, you get incentive. You get time off. You get reduction of sentence. If you don't work, then you just do the most of what they're going to make you do. You know what I'm saying? The board of prison terms is like, it was like a joke. You know what I'm saying? And when I went in, I was under the old law, so that means I was like 7 to life. Even though, it was like 7 to life. And so they really couldn't like deal with me a certain way. It's like when I got to 7 years, they had to pull me in and say, now let's take a look at it and so forth and see what it looked like. We have people like Mordenaro, we have people like ex-sheriffs, ex-politicians, all of that was a part of the board of prison terms. And let me tell you something, they terrorize lifers. They terrorize. You could go up in there and have a cuss out session. Y'all be cussing each other out and talking shit and all that. And then they say, all right, well, take your ass on back for 5 years and come back and see us again. You know what I'm saying? So the board of prison terms was really I think the board of prison terms, they saw the board of prison terms as that last step of punishment because they oppressed every lifer that came through there. Every lifer. Back then, when I went to my first board hearing, every lifer they oppressed coming through there. You know what I'm saying? And so one day I went to the board, right, and this woman came, and so we were talking and stuff, and she was cool, white woman, older white woman, everything. I'm like, okay. I said, I'm feeling good about this hearing, right? Because I'm thinking, this is it. So I go in there, and when I go in there, they like, it ain't no hostility, everything is cool. Dude, get on the phone, call the employer who was Richard Chacker from Perry's Cafe in Santa Monica, and so he talked to them like, yeah, okay, cool. So they granted me parole. I was like shocked as fuck, right? 22 years, right? It's like bam, you know what I'm saying? So I guess they done beat me up enough in this room, and so now they figure like, hey, no problem. Plus, they said them dudes was like doing way too much. So I get out, I'm talking to the white woman. The white woman said, hey, you know what? She said, I felt that I had to do this hearing. And this is a true story, Ron. She said, I felt that I had to do this hearing. I said, oh, yeah? I said, why is that? She said, well, because my hearing was like Monday. She says, well, we came into town Thursday, and she say, on Friday, my husband died. Now, I'm sitting up here, I'm finna get my life back. And she say, and my husband died. And I'm saying, wow, that's crazy, to myself. And I'm saying, damn, I'm sorry to hear that. And she said, yeah. She said, I contacted the Board of Prison Term and said, you know what? She said, they say, don't worry about it. They say, just take your husband home and we can just reschedule this dude another time. And she said, no, I need to do this. And so I was like, damn. So the universe moved to make sure that I get out here so that I can do this work. And so, you know, I was paroled on 2005, December the 1st, 2005. And it's been on ever since. But you know, when I got out, I finally got out of the program. I was at the Amity program. I finally got out, got my own apartment over here, not too far from where we're at right now. And I met Mac Capone. You know, I was working in Santa Monica, and I had seen Mac Capone in the community where I live. You know, there was 3030 Crenshaw, and I wasn't really like interacting with him that much, but I knew that I had some work to do, and it looked like he was doing some work that I needed to do. So one day I was working in Santa Monica, like with Perry, and a brother had gotten killed, and I saw Mac with the family. And I'm like, oh shit. I'm saying, this brother stay where I stay. And I'm like, yeah, I need to go holler at this brother. So that sort of like started our friendship, because I told him I wanted to start getting involved, you know, we started talking and stuff like that. We stayed like 2 blocks away from each other. And then, you know, I had ideas from the prison system of getting out here and being part of a revolutionary movement and so forth, you know. And things wasn't quite like I thought it would be. You know, it wasn't quite like I thought it would be, you know. But I think that I got into the best situations I probably could have been in, you know, because I met some good people. We started the AFRICATOWN Coalition. And I brought some of my ideas that I had, you know, gestated in the prison system, you know, on how to help black people, you know. So, yes, I have a certain degree of institutionalization that I have experienced for doing 22 years in the prison system. But at the same time, that's where, like, my anger comes from. A lot of people talk about, oh, you know, this might come from something different, you know. But my anger comes pretty much from the prison system. When I was young, the police, they wasn't as crazy as they are now. But I had a police put his gun in my face once, and that really like put the fuck the police in my head, you know what I'm saying, at a very early age, you know. So, well, you know, one thing I would have to say is that, you know, there's gonna be a punishment for that. You know, there's gonna be a punishment for that, because white supremacy had already done some institutional work around criminology. That's why we had Alcatraz and all that back in the early 20s and stuff like that. So there was like this classical period, or whatever you want to call it, to where they kind of refined criminology, and they really knew how to treat people. But what they did was they decided, based upon white supremacy, they let white supremacy, that whole idea and philosophy of white supremacy, dehumanize people to a more greater extent while we're in prison. So we had, who was that fool? Biden. He came up with the crime bill with Clinton. And they decided to remove black people from the community because black people was a threat to white supremacy merely because of our existence. You can't stamp us out. And they were afraid of that. And they saw these young people rising up, and the hip-hop music was going, and the gang started to flourish a little bit more, and it was like tens of thousands of dollars in these young brothers' pockets, and they was like, oh, hell no. You know what I'm saying? So they shifted all that to the prison system. You know what I'm saying? And what happened was, there was violence in the prison system with blacks. Some blacks were like really into violence amongst each other, but most, you know, there's a lot of racial shit up in there. You know what I'm saying? So they regulated a lot of that to a certain extent. It was in my latter years that the gangs really began to inundate the prison system, you know, but I would say to the dominant society that, you know, this is an opportunity to learn from your mistake, because we're not going to allow you to repeat that. Well, you know, let's just look at it like this here. My mother died, my father died, my godmother died, 2 cousins died, and my brother passed, and a number of friends passed. You know, so depending on how much time you do, you're gonna lose major chunks of your life while you're up in that prison system. So if you don't think that that's gonna really affect you, then that's gonna be like, it's gonna be the hardest thing that you're gonna have to deal with. The hardest thing you're gonna have to deal with is the loss of family. So if you have people that like, you know, want to continue to promote that prison lifestyle thing and like, hey, you know, it's cool and like it just might be something at the end of that rainbow, that's not a rainbow. That's a shithole. That's a toilet right there. And they tried to flush us down the toilet. That's what white supremacy tried to do, flush us down the toilet. You see, but we stayed strong. A lot of us stayed strong. We came up out of that. And if I was to say anything to young people, I would say if you think you're smart, don't go to prison. If you think you're smart, don't go to prison. Because I lost 22 fucking years. 22, and sorry the language. 22 years, you can't get that back. Your homeboys can't get that back. Even if they put a sack in your hand, you can't get that back. Alright? So, yeah, don't throw your life away. Because there's so much more that we could be doing out here on these streets. One of my biggest regrets is I missed the whole hip-hop thing, and the whole music thing, and the whole money everywhere. After watching Lifestyle of Rich and Famous and Robin Leach all them goddamn years, I didn't get none of that shit. Because I'm sitting in prison for 22 fucking years. I thought I was smart. You know what I'm saying? I was a part of a criminal culture. Okay? I'm not saying I was innocent, but I was influenced by these corporate races that created a society so that black people could fail. You know what I'm saying? They would look at us and see us looking up and seeing all that good stuff they got and think that we just gonna sit here and like just go through poverty all our fucking life. Like, no, we're finna come get some of that shit. And if it means that we're gonna do some time, well, that's cool. But today, no. There's just so many opportunities right now and out there right now. AI is coming out. There's just so many opportunities out there right now. You know, the message is being regulated. There's a lot of jobs that's opening up. So black folk, young black people, get some of them jobs and try to work for them. Well, you know, Black August was always a special time in the prison system, you know, because it allowed, you know, black men to focus on what was real, family, the struggle that we have been through, the struggle that we failed to participate in when we were on the streets, because a lot of us in that prison system, you know, we failed to participate in the struggle. We failed to stand up to white supremacy while we was out there on them streets. But then we got a second chance, Musa. We got a second chance. Okay, a lot of us came out here and do some great work. I want to give a shout out to brother Gregory Rounds, you know what I'm saying, and his brother. We were lifers together up in that prison system, and this brother has done a great job, you know what I'm saying, reacclimating back into society. A lot of ex-lifers that we were together, lived 22 years together, you know what I'm saying, they're doing great work out here, you know, and we've always encouraged our people to do that because there's no life in there, man. There's no life in there. There's no life in there. I'm talking about, what I'm talking about right now, it might seem like it's cool, but that's hell up in there. That is like hell. That is like psychological oppression. And if you get through it and you come out of it sane, you're fucking lucky.
So I just want to let everybody know that black people are not giving up South Central. We're not negotiating with Garcetti. We're not negotiating with the LAPD. And we are not going to be managed by any coon-ass Negro organization out here in South Central that think that they're going to manage and control black people. For white people. For white supremacists. That's something that we're not going to do. We're out here to let you know right now, we're not going to let it happen. And you heard it right here, Crenshaw, Martin Luther King. Black people are going to define our own history. Black people are going to make a stand right here in South Central, right here at Crenshaw and Martin Luther King, all throughout South Central. We're not going out to the deserts. You're not moving us out to Lancaster. We're going to stay right here where our people slept on these fucking streets, all up and down Crenshaw. This is where we're going to be, right here. We're not giving up this territory.